everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Infernal Intercourse with me and Pastor Brian. And today, there he is. And today we're going to talk about superpowered characters who don't use their superpowers, which in season 5 is one of the things that's kind of annoying me. So, opening thoughts on that, Brian? Do you have any?
Well, I was just realizing when you brought it up, there's a part of me that I don't like fantasy elements in like realistic plots. So there's a part of me that felt like that was good, but it is interesting once you brought it up and I think about it, it is really kind of absurd sometimes the situations that are creating tension in the plot when really, they're supernatural beings and, that there's no reason for this tension. It could easily be resolved. So I do think this is an interesting topic.
Okay, so yeah, what I want to talk about is that we've got these characters who have powers that they seem to forget about, which seems really kind of weird. Now, the fact that Lucifer didn't have wings in the first couple of seasons, okay, explained a lot. M.Div, of course, loses his wings and his abilities, and that upsets him a lot in the beginning, and then he sort of copes with it. So, okay, so you can lose your abilities, and then you can't use them. Okay, fine. But when you get those abilities back, when you have your wings again, and you don't use them, then the question is why? Did you forget that they were there? Did the writers forget that they were there? Are the things in your plot just so easy to solve that somebody with wings could have solved it back, 12 minutes in, and it's a 44-minute episode? Because that's kind of lazy writing. Now, superpowered characters are a problem for everybody. It's a problem for Superman, right? He is so powerful that people have to keep inventing new colors of kryptonite, right, to try to bring him down because he's just so powerful. But even in some books, characters will accumulate powers from book to book, and either the author forgets that they have them, or at this point they're just so powerful that there's no one can oppose them, right? You just get a very boring plot because it's like, on the first 2 pages, this character could have done whatever that they did 2 books ago and solved it all. We wouldn't have these other 700 pages of this novel. So if you don't want to have your superpowered characters so superpowered that there's no plot, there's no tension, because if they could just solve it by snapping their fingers, then why don't they, right? So, but these characters aren't that powerful. They're not gods, okay? So, and they can lose their abilities, but when they do have them, they have a tendency not to use them, and that makes me wonder why they have the abilities in the first place. So the first one,
go ahead. I do think that they are. I agree with you. They're less powerful even than I would expect archangels to be, right? Like I would expect them all to possess a host of abilities and powers, right? Like so I think they're doing a good job with that. But yeah, there's some organicness to them having some powers. It's not even Deus Ex Machina. I mean, there's an organicness to having angels have angel powers, and I think the writers forget. I think you're right.
So the one I was going to mention first was the one we've only seen a couple of times, and that's when apparently angels are able to contact each other by giving this little prayer position, and then they close their eyes and pray to whoever they're trying to contact. It's kind of like angel telegrams or whatever. It's this, subspace communication. And they're able to apparently choose who hears this message, because when Lucifer does it at the end of season 3, he tells him in a deal, hey, you've been answering my summons pretty quickly from the Silver City, and that's when M.Div admits that he's actually on Earth, and that's why he can be so quick to show up to Lucifer's summons, which you would think he wouldn't do. But okay, so he does, which means that Lucifer's able to do this and contact M.Div specifically, his little angel number or whatever, to say, hey, bud, show up here at this time. I need you right now. Why don't they ever do that when there's a problem? I mean, for one thing, Lucifer's complained that no one ever visited him in hell. That once he was banished, he never saw any of his siblings ever again, except when he would come to Earth and M.Div would get sent to kick him back into hell. But not that M.Div went to hell, he would see him on Earth and then make him go back to hell. So, and then the angel of death is like, well, I was going to, and then I didn't, and then it was kind of weird, as 1,000 years went by, I'm just like, well, I just didn't go. Why doesn't, Lucifer give the little signal, little, angel signal, and say, hey, somebody's coming to visit me, I'm lonely or something. I mean, he could have done that apparently. But on Earth, when there's a problem, why can't he call someone? Why can't Amenadiel call someone and say, hey, maybe not Remiel, because she seems kind of like a bitch, but somebody, and say, hey, sister, brother, could you come down to Earth and give me a hand? We've got this problem with demons. We've got this problem with whatever. We could use someone else to help out. And they don't. So why not?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Remiel would be kind of a rival power to him, right? Like, I think when Lucifer wants to pull someone down to hell, he doesn't want to have to go through the mediary of Remiel. So I think that's one of the last people he would call. But and actually, as I was thinking about it, really the only other angel that Lucifer can call is my burgeoning hero, Amenadiel, right? Like, so again, to come and save the day. I think that's interesting. But also, as you said that, it occurred to me, I think it was smart of this mythology that they each have different gifts, but that's one I guess we can presume they all have in common, right? That telepathy. And I do think it's important that they can just summon each other, because it's not like the Force where, like, when something happens, all the Force sensitives sense it, right? Like, it's direct. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, would you think that, and we haven't gotten enough names of enough angels that inside the show, so I have no idea what angels are named in this particular heaven. But, you don't know why Amenadiel or Lucifer can't just say, hey, my favorite sister, couldn't you come down here and help us out? But they don't. So
and Uriel's a jerk. I mean, the ones we've met are real jerks. So.
Yeah, we have not. We've mentioned that before. The angels seem to be not very good at being nice people, or having relationships, or basically doing much of anything. I'm assuming it's because they've never had any conflict in their lives, so they've never actually had to do anything. So they just end up being sort of preteen, self-absorbed, superpowered things that are hanging around heaven, but apparently not near the humans part of heaven. They're kind of ghettoized, I guess. Angels here, dead humans over there.
Yeah, they're like the idle rich, right? Like, they have very little to do, right? And they just have to please everybody to stay in the inheritance.
Yeah, the once in a while that dad sends you on an errand, you leave or whatever, but that doesn't seem to happen very often. So anyway, because Amenadiel says that when he blessed Chloe's parents so they could have a baby, that he'd never been asked to do that before. So, it's like, well, that's a whole eternity where God's never asked anybody to, but maybe God did that with Gabriel, with Mary, but, it's not like they're being sent out on a weekly basis or that they have a chore chart or something. Mostly it's like they're sitting around doing nothing for eternity, which seems pretty awful. But
well, and even that plot thing, they're not really making use of it. It's just a weird plot thing, because the only way they seem to be using it is for Chloe having her feelings hurt by it, right? They're not even using anymore his vulnerability around her, and I mean, it's like they establish these things, like you said, and then they go away.
Well, I think the vulnerability part they're setting up, because now that we know they subconsciously affect their own biology, then he became vulnerable around her because he wanted to learn how to be vulnerable around her, and now apparently he maybe is too frightened of being vulnerable around her, and he's like withdrawn from that, so that he has now made himself invulnerable again. So, clearly unconsciously, that's what she's worried about, that somehow unconsciously he's pulling away from her because, apparently this is a new thing. Not only has Lucifer apparently never been in love before, but if it's true that these angels basically sit around heaven doing nothing for eternity, none of them have been in love before. Zero. This is the test pilot case, right? Lucifer and Chloe are unique. It's never happened, just like Charlie's, and it's never happened. So he has no procedural manual to go by, and neither does anybody else, nor can he ask anybody else, because no one else has gone through it, at least of his particular species. So
yeah, it's interesting. Amenadiel has a child, but that's not really a love relationship, right? Like, that's a happy accident.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously he and Linda really like each other. Though were they in love? I don't think we get the idea that they were like in love. Yeah. So as far as angels being in love with anyone except themselves, then Lucifer Chloe seems to be the first incident of eternity this has ever happened.
Which is interesting because May seems to be, really a way of augmenting that idea of like love and passion and all that stuff. And of course, differently abled than the other. I think it's weird that Maze has knives that can kill angels or something. I think that's very weird too. How would a demon have power to kill their overseer? That's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, Maze is a sort of another where she seems to fall in love a lot, but she and Eve seem to have the same problem there, where they seem to fall in love with people that they try to make themselves over for, and both of them, seem to be the characters that need to take a step back and decide who they are first before they can really offer themselves as being in love. And I guess Lucifer's working on that too. He does have some sense of who he is in terms of like I don't lie and things like that. But the other sense, none of these angel characters are terribly self-aware. So he's working on the self-awareness. Linda's helped a lot there. Yeah. So another superpower that they don't seem to use, or that Lucifer doesn't seem to use, he uses it once, and when he did it, I'm like, why haven't they done this before? And that is in the opening episode of season 5, when he sends the demon up into the dead person to give Chloe a message. It's like, there's no reason, once she's aware that he can do this, that he can't regularly update her on what's happening with him. They could be having conversations via demon, as their intermediaries all the time. Because how many dead people can she probably run across? A lot, because of the way the TV show is structured. So, all you need is for her to be at a few crime scenes, and you could be telling her all kinds of things, and she could be telling you things, and there could be communication. But it happens one time and never again. So, yeah.
It was cool. It was a cool way to see into hell too. We finally got to see what we had guessed about hell. But I mean, I really liked that aspect of the hell scenes where it's like each newly dead person like brings news about somebody and stuff going on. I thought that was kind of a cool way to play it. But you're right, it's been underused, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do that, why aren't you doing it? And you could. It also occurred to me while I was watching several of these episodes in season 5. If you want to know who killed somebody, you can just go ask them. Okay, so the guy we saw in episode 1, the person who killed him had a mask, so he didn't know. But they're not all the murderers aren't going to have masks on. Why don't you just go to hell and say, hey, John Doe, you're in the morgue. What's your name? What's your social security number? Where was your address? Who killed you? Why did they kill you? Whatever. And then you can fly back to Los Angeles and give this information to Chloe. She doesn't have to say where she got it, but she can start looking in that direction, and just claim that maybe a confidential informant gave her some information. Maybe they told me his last name was Smith or something, and that he lived in San Gabriel or whatever, and then kind of go from there. But it's like, why aren't we utilizing the fact that angels have wings and that angels can fly places? We do it briefly when Chloe wants M.Di's help at the convent, and she calls him on the phone and then says, well, I don't know how long it takes you to get here, but before she even finishes her sentence, a little puff of air comes, so we know that he's arrived. So instant transportation from wherever he was to the convent. We don't see that very often. It's like when Lucifer didn't have wings, fine, but he has wings now. And it's maybe in season 3 when he was still fighting the whole wing thing and cutting them off over and over again and all that. Okay. But by season 4, he's kind of gotten, in season 4, he wouldn't look at his wings, right? So we keep having to give excuses for him not to use his wings. But this is season 5 now. Why isn't he not just like using them? They should be part of his nature, like humans using their hands or their nose or something. It's part of his biology. Why are we not using these wings?
When they go to extra lengths, right? To Lucifer can't. He's had issues with wings. M.Di's had issues with wings. So it is weird. It's like they're very loath to use that wing thing. Maybe they don't want to appear too Deus Ex Machina. But like I said, these are organic abilities of an angel. It's kind of a defining trait of an angel in our mythology, right?
So I assume that, you know, the CGI is too expensive. So I'm assuming there are actual like money reasons why we don't do this. But it does seem like, since most of the time when they use their wings, we don't actually see their wings. You just get the puff of air and someone else looking, you know, like when he went to hell to get Abel's, you know, we just saw Cain's face and a little puff of air went over Tom Welling, and then another puff of air, and Lucifer was back. So we didn't even see, you know, much of anything going on there. But that doesn't happen a lot. And it's like these characters could be getting around Los Angeles a lot more quickly. When there's a problem, why are they not flying there? If Lucifer finds out that Chloe's in danger, she's about to get shot, why does he go for his car when he could fly there?
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense to me. Okay, because she's got a car there apparently, so he could always come back with her, right? Or just fly back, you know?
And I understand why they would normally like enjoy the novelty of a car, right? But yeah, when stuff's getting real and work needs to be done, I mean, it's silly.
And then the other, what about all the superpowers maybe I wanted to talk about? We have wings. Oh, well, the wing jujitsu thing. That's what it is. At the end of season 3, he gets really cool with the wings, man. He's like slapping people down, and you know, he's like beating up all Kane's henchmen with his wings, and it's like, you know, you got fists and you got wings, and you're beating up a bunch of dudes, and it works out pretty cool. And then M.Div in the season 5, when he's confronting the guy in the convent, he gets his wings out, and then he like knocks him down with his wings. It's like, that's cool. Again, probably too expensive to do it too often with CGI, but they all seem to know how to fight with their wings. It's like, that's cool. Why are we not using that more often? So.
Yeah. And of course, we get the big duel right here at the end. And even there, you don't get the kind of view of the wings you'd like. I did love that whoosh, whoosh, whoosh with the black, white, gray wings fly out. That was great. It definitely makes me wish that there was more Wingitude going on here. Definitely.
Wingitude. I like that. I might call this episode the Wingitude episode. All right. So if you have any issues that you might have as a viewer, if you watch the show and maybe you think we're completely wet about complaining about this sort of thing, let us know in the comments. Or if there's a superpower we've missed that you've noticed that the characters have and never seem to use again, you know, tell us about it. Because we do know that like M.Div specifically lost his abilities. So, you know, clearly that's why he's not using them. But when we know that they do have them, they are there to be used for the plot, unless you specifically mention that you're taking them away somehow. So, you know, they have superpowers. Let's see them use them.
Yeah.
All right. So if you like this episode, hit like and subscribe and that little bell notification so you know when I put up more episodes. And we'll see you next time on Infernal Intercourse.
Bye-bye.